I'm on a quest to transform the entirety of Minecraft. So far, we've transformed the Desert Temple and the Jungle Temple, and this time we're going to tackle one of Minecraft's oldest naturally generated structures, which has been in the game for 9 years now. You probably guessed it from the title. Today I'll be giving Minecraft Stronghold a major update. Oh yeah, also I'll upload the world download to my Patreon if this video gets 100,000 likes. You guys have absolutely smashed the like goal on all of these upgrading videos, and it literally takes a few seconds to hit that like button and let me know that you want to see more of this kind of content. Also, while you're down there at the bottom of the video, you could also subscribe. Only 15% of you guys watching are currently subscribed. Literally. What are you guys doing? We're so close to reaching 1 million, so let's get that bread, gamers, and join the Blox fam. Of course, to start things off, yep, you guessed it, we're here in World Painter, creating a seriously epic looking cave. For this cave, I'm going to go through the same kind of process I used when making my underground kingdom cave, although this time around I make a large crater in the ceiling of the cave, opening things up a little bit more to the overground. You'd think I'd be a professional in this program by now, considering I have to use it for virtually every video, but I'm not. As you can see, we've got a nice, large open space to work with, a bunch of stalagmites and stalactites, lots of lava, and a big old hole in the ceiling. Now that we've got our new terrain, it's time to extract the vanilla stronghold. That is, once I eventually manage to find it. After placing down this absolute maze of a stronghold, I had to somehow figure out how on earth I was going to approach this transformation. I mean, just look at it. Okay, so I figured the best plan of action would be to separate the stronghold into 3 parts and rearrange those sections around the main plinth we've got in the centre of our cave. This way the stronghold can surround the main centrepiece of the build, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, I've deliberately left each of these stronghold segments on different levels so that it sits staggered on the side of the cliff face. I then build up a few smaller raised sections of land towards the main cave wall. I figured the lava meeting with the stone at the bottom of the cave was too abrupt, so I mix in some magma-esque blocks to blend the two opposing materials. Before we get any further though, we need a grand entrance for our stronghold upgrade. So I make a cave entrance with a gradual sloping pathway towards the raised landscape near the edge of the lava. Now before you skip ahead to the rest of this crazy build, please support the channel with today's sponsor, Dragon Raja. It's been a year since Dragon Raja was released, and their first anniversary celebration is well underway. The game has some unbelievable graphics for a mobile game, and it's been optimized perfectly, so it really is like playing a AAA titled game from a device that fits in your pocket. It's an open world game, and the map is massive. It even features real life architecture from all around the world, so there's plenty for you to explore. Dragon Raja has one of the best storylines I've ever seen in a mobile game. All of the decisions you make in-game directly affect the storyline later on.
According to witnesses,
must be more careful next time.
At the scene, helping to prevent further destruction.
There's an extensive career system that ranges anywhere from a simple shop owner to a massive celebrity superstar. On top of that, you can even select various class types to choose from. So you could have a career as an animal breeder, yet you can also double up as an assassin. Now that is an interesting combo. Now there's tons of customization and you can pretty much make any character you want. It also has a housing system where you can make a cute little house or even something as grand as a castle. And it's completely customizable to decorate and make your own dream house. This game really is like starting a new life where anything is possible, and I think that's something that a lot of us can use right now. So you guys should definitely join me in the game. You can check out the top link in the description to download the game for yourselves. And once again, thanks to Dragon Raja for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into transforming that stronghold. It's time to connect these plinths with one massive bridge. I use an assortment of grey, generally dark materials for my colour palette for this bridge and the rest of the build, primarily to match the original stone brick of the stronghold. I also wanted to provide the build with a little pop of colour, so I accent the monotone greys with green and lime concrete and glass to tie in with the whole end portal theme, seeing as that's basically the entire purpose of a stronghold. To finish off our bridge, I add fire plinths lining the edges and including large blackstone spikes protruding from the landscape to add to the evil, menacing vibe we've got going on. Either side of the main island sit 2 stalagmites protruding from the lava lake. So I decided to build watchtowers with large fire pits and embed them into the rock. Then, building out on a diagonal to connect it into the stronghold, I create a bridge mimicking the design of our main bridge. Currently these bridges just connect into the rock face, but later on I'll adapt them and connect them onto our updated stronghold. On that note, it's time to start upgrading the Stronghold, starting with the entrance. Now this connects directly onto the end of the main bridge, so I converted this first cluster of buildings into a gatehouse, sandwiched between two watchtowers. At first, I wasn't really sure how to approach transforming the Stronghold, simply because it's mostly a jumbled mess of stone brick cubes. But in the end, I decided to create walled foundations and then transform the square clusters into Gothic, fantasy-style buildings. This way, it matches the dungeon/evil lair vibe, while staying somewhat true to the original Stronghold foundations. Again, I chose to match the same grey tone colour palette and accent it with a green roof and windows. This colour scheme is often used in evil fantasy style kingdoms and castles, and really provides a mystical element to the build. With the first section of the Stronghold complete, I add a gatehouse to either side of the rock face and connect it to the second Stronghold segment with a small bridge. I continued the wall foundations around and into the raised cliff, convert a segment into a building with another peaked roof, and do the same with one of the smaller sections, turning it into a diagonal building to sit up against the foundations. I mostly stick to buildings on a normal axis for this build to match the Stronghold design, but occasionally add in a few diagonal buildings to break this up a little bit. Strongholds usually contain lots of spiral staircases that lead to upper and lower sections, so I upgrade this tunneled staircase section to an outbuilding that connects onto the side of a steeply peaked building. I continue the foundations around and create another bridge and staircase leading to another level of the Stronghold. As you can tell, I'm trying real hard to keep things dynamic and multi-layered for this upgrade. This building is on the verge of 2 different levels and includes a staircase. So I simply convert it into a dungeon building, which can easily double as a general staircase and access to the upper floor. This large cluster of buildings was the most elaborate so far. To help break it up a little bit and make a start on upgrading it, I transformed the biggest cube, which turns out was actually the Stronghold library, and convert it into a much more grand design. This is the biggest building in the upgrade and includes an attached tower that bridges off to the cliff edge. To tackle the remaining attached buildings, I add another large sloping roof and make it part of the library building. For the remaining small cube, I again adapt it to sit on a diagonal up against the foundations, with another small building around the right side of the library. I add another 2-story building with a large sloped roof to again connect the lower and upper levels. Behind it, in the remaining space, I reuse a few of the building designs and lastly, create a final grand building, almost resembling that of a clock tower, and then reposition it to create a little courtyard in the centre. For the final segment of the Stronghold, I repurposed some buildings I've already made to complete the remaining space. These buildings, if I'm being honest, were very difficult to tackle. It was extremely compact and complex. I had to neaten up things quite a bit in this area and adapt the pasted in buildings to fit the foundations I just laid out. This means making them larger or smaller and turning them on a 45-degree angle. By repurposing the buildings I've already made and merging them with other designs, they essentially look like completely different buildings. Before moving on to the main feature of this build, I hop back into the village to add a little decoration. I mix in some different materials to make the floor appear a little bit worn, place down some custom lanterns, cages, and storage for some epic dungeon loot. These little details always help to bring the build to life. As you guys can see, I've added a few mob spawners to kind of emulate what it's like in an actual stronghold, and give things that menacing dungeon vibe. I just wanted to show off this area in first person to show the scale of everything and how real it all feels, before we make a start on the castle. Speaking of, now it's finally time for the Grand Castle, which will be where our end portal resides. I start by mapping out foundations in a hexagonal shape, creating tiered layers, which gradually become taller and thinner further up the tower. Before adding details to the castle, I add some foliage around the big old hole at the top of the cave, with vines that drape down inside. This was actually a technique that I also used in the Underground Kingdom, and it really helps to show a little bit of life creeping into the cave. To start on the main castle, I take the watchtower design I created earlier and adapt it so it can be embedded into the hexagonal foundations. I then work on adding some ornate crenellations to decorate the bottom layer of our huge cake-like castle, making sure to include lots of spikes and make things look really menacing. I paste around the adapted watchtower design and start working on the next layer. This time I add some windows since we have a little bit more space to work with. Of course, I have to use green stained glass to add a pop of colour, and allude to the end portal we'll be putting up top shortly. I paste around the design for this layer and include a grand doorway at the front. For the next layer, I create a new tower design to embed into the hexagonal foundations. I add a few small windows to the tower and to the layer that we're on, keeping them lit up with that green glow. As you can see, I try to stick to darker materials near the base of each layer and for the indented sections, and then make the top of each layer very harsh and spiky. This really gives off that menacing vibe, which I try to enhance slightly with the green glowing windows. Now that we've reached the top of the tower, I create large, curved spikes in a design that's very much inspired by the Eye of Sauron tower from Lord of the Rings. We'll come back to this a little bit later on to add the cherry on top. Before we finish up the tower, I reposition it and embed it into the rock, creating a gradual sloping pathway up to the main entrance. I take one of my little gatehouse designs I made earlier and place it down out front to guard the entrance. Although, to be honest, I don't know if anyone would actually be brave enough to knock on the front door of this place, especially when you see who or what I'll be building to act as guard dogs. Either way, I place a few torches along the path just in case anyone plucks up the courage to visit. So, how else can we ward off any visitors? You guessed it, more spikes. I create some huge black curved spikes and embed them into the rock just below the castle, blending them in a little bit to somehow make these crazy structures look somewhat natural. Next up, we've got to do a little something for the interior, which I again took inspiration from the Lord of the Rings for. I didn't want to spend too long on this, so I create a sort of open plan shrine where you can teleport to the top. This clip was actually a little bit glitchy, so some of the building wasn't captured, but you can see some of the banner designs I used to decorate the centerpiece, which I found an Instagram page called Nook Banners. They have some really cool designs and you should definitely go check them out. With the basic interior complete, I head up top to add in a giant end portal, powered by a huge green crystal above, which is contained by those big spikes we built earlier, in true Eye of Sauron style. I finish up by adding a few torches to decorate. And lastly, as I mentioned before, I've got to add something crazy to guard this place. So I take a dragon design from a previous build to adapt for this one. This is one from my upgrading through every update video, which you should check out if you like this kind of content. I changed the materials to fit with the purple and green end portal theme and make the wings opaque this time around with green stained glass, which is apparently my favourite block accent in this build. With the first dragon complete and ready for anything, I add another one on one of those large black spikes I created earlier, again using crying obsidian for a little hint of purple on the body. And with that, this crazy build is complete. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, thanks to Dragon Raja for the sponsor. Remember, this build will be up for download on my Patreon if we can reach 100,000 likes. You then get access to this and all of my other builds for a couple dollars, and it helps me out a lot. Apart from all that, I'll see you in the next one.